The big wireless companies sold you an outdated plan tied to long-term contracts and mystery fees. Simple Mobile's different. You get a lightning-fast 4G LTE nationwide network with no contract, ever. And keep the phone and number you love. Just text the word BYOP to 611-611 to see if your phone is compatible. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple.
Standard text message and data rates may apply based on your mobile phone service. Please refer always to the privacy policy at simplemobile.com/privacy policy and the terms and conditions at simplemobile.com/terms and conditions.
The boss is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
Coffee with Kenobi presents Rebels Reactions with Dan Z and Corey Club.
You are Bob, the little Weisman, and the priest. Take it away.
This is Greg Weisman. I'm one of the executive producers on Star Wars Rebels. I'm also the author of the new book, Reign of the Ghost. And you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z and Corey Club. Welcome to Rebels Reactions. This is the podcast you are looking for.
We are thrilled to welcome Greg Weisman to Coffee with Kenobi. Greg is an executive producer of the eagerly anticipated Star Wars Rebels animated series, along with Dave Filoni and Simon Kinberg. The series is set between the events of episodes 3 and 4, and is scheduled to premiere in the fall 2014 as a one-hour special on Disney Channel before airing regularly on Disney XD. Greg is best known as the creator of Gargoyles and was the supervising producer of The Spectacular Spider-Man. He also worked on one of my personal favorites, Young Justice, and has an excellent novel currently available, Reign of the Ghost. We are honored to share a cup of coffee with this talented new addition to the Star Wars family and to have him as our special guest on Coffee with Kenobi Presents Rebels Reactions. Welcome, Greg.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. We know that everybody's time is valuable, so we're just going to jump right into the Star Wars questions. Okay, Corey, go right ahead.
Sure. Greg, our first question has to do with the Star Wars Rebels. We'd like to know how you got involved.
Well, you know, it was a job interview. In fact, a lot of job interviews. I met with the Lucasfilm and the Disney folks, and that, I guess, went pretty well. So then I had a meeting with all those same folks and Dave Filoni and Simon Kinberg at Simon's office on the Fox lot. And it wasn't intimidating at all. And that went pretty well. And so then I had another meeting with some Disney execs and Lucasfilm execs and Dave Filoni. And then we had a lunch. And I think that was it. Yeah, I think there were 4 meetings, and then they offered me the job, and it was extremely, extremely exciting. And then after that, you know, they flew me up to Big Rock Ranch, and I stayed at Skywalker Ranch, which was pretty much the coolest thing ever.
I'll say. Wow.
And we just dove in.
That's fantastic. Well, we're thrilled to have you, of course, in the Star Wars family. And you've had a previous series that you've been involved with, like Gargoyles and Young Justice. They went to some very dark places, and I'm thinking particularly with Artemis and Aqualad. Can we look to Rebels to set a similar kind of pace?
Well, you know, it's not like dark is what we were going for, even on Young Justice. I mean, what we're doing is telling a story on that show, and sometimes the story gets a little darker, and I think that's probably going to be the case on Rebels. It's not that we're going for dark, but we're telling a story, and aspects of the story are, you know, range from dark, I suppose, to funny, even silly at moments, you know. The tone that we're going for is very much the tone of A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back. And again, that had a great range to it.
Definitely.
You know, everything from comedy to drama to romance, you know, and that kind of range is pretty much what you'll see on Rebels.
That's great news. I'm sure the fans are very excited to hear that.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. We're really excited. We've met pretty much the main cast so far. The characters are pretty exciting and unique, and they've got some interesting names, a lot of allegory in nature there. How conscious is that, and how does that reveal about their characterization in the series?
The first names of all these characters were in existence when I came aboard. I mean, this show was really created by Dave and Simon. I like to think I came on board and added something. And in fact, I think I came up with a lot of the last names for the characters. Jairus and Ren and Aurelios. I think even Bridger might have been mine, but I'm not 100% sure. But in terms of the first names, I gave Zeb his full first name. When I met Zeb, so to speak, he was just Zeb, and we decided that his full name was Garazeb Aurelios. But I don't know about the allegorical nature of their names, but they just felt right, sounded right to us. I'll admit I even questioned the names Hera and Chopper.
Really?
For very different reasons. Hera, just because, I was a little nervous that maybe that was a little galactic-y-ish.
Sure.
But I liked the name a lot, and everyone else felt good about it, so we sort of didn't worry about that. And Chopper, we just sort of wanted to understand where that name would have come from. And so by making him a 110P, that sort of explained it for me. And I think that pretty much covers my contribution to it. If you talk to Simon or Dave, they might have had something very specific in mind for those first names. I'm just not sure.
Well, it's fascinating. Plus, Hera, talk about strong female empowerment. So what you're doing here is fleshing out these characters in the Star Wars universe. But as you've been going along with this incredibly talented team you have, who's been the most challenging to flesh out as the series development progresses?
I don't know that any one was any more challenging. They've all got these pretty rich backstories, some of which will be revealed over the course of season 1, some of which we're very consciously saving for what we hope will be season 2. But I think part of it, I don't know that any one was more of a challenge than another, but it was, just great fun for all of us to be sitting in a room and saying, okay, who is this guy? Or who is this woman? What happened to her? Who's her? Our little crew forms a family unit, but we wanted to know, okay, that's fine, but who were these characters' families before we met them here and before they joined this crew? So we have all that information, all that backstory sort of ready to dole out in pieces as the series progresses. And I don't know if it was challenging so much as it was a blast. And we just had a really good time doing it, just really getting involved with the characters and going deeper with them. They're a lot of fun just on the surface. I'm sure most of the fans have seen in these little preview videos. But I think they get more interesting the more you know about them. And that is what I'm looking forward to, getting the fan response to their backstories as they are slowly revealed.
Yeah, and the buzz has obviously been fantastic. So everybody's doing such a great job building the excitement.
You talked a lot about the characters so far, and we're really excited that you guys are just really digging it and just having a blast with it. Some of the things that kind of got us kind of talking as fans, the gender, as far as stereotypes go, how do you make these new members part of the Star Wars community, make them alive and vibrant?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is what I just talked about. You want to make them real people. So that means it's not enough just to say that Kanan's a cowboy Jedi. I mean, he is, and that's great. But we have to know how he got that way. And eventually we have to reveal that to the fans. I mean, not all at once. Like I said, we plan on doling that information out over time. But you need to, if you're going to write the character and make the character come to life and make him or her interesting, you need to know what that backstory is. So I think by figuring that stuff out, it informs how we write the characters. We reveal these backstories to our actors. So so it informs how they play the characters, and the artistic crew knows that as well. So, it all plays in to make them living, breathing human beings, even the ones that aren't literally human.
The real challenge and the beauty of storytelling, as your amazing career has definitely shown. So a lot of fans are eating, of course, all these characters up in the reveals. They've been wonderful. So then we meet Zeb, and we find out that he's a new species in the Star Wars universe. What, if anything, can you tell us about his new species and him, really, as a character?
Well, I'm not. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not big on spoilers, so I'm not going to tell you too much about him.
Keep us guessing.
But
yes.
I will say is what's already been said, which is that Zeb is a Lasat from the planet Lasan. He was a member of the honor guard of the Lasat, the honor guard of Lasan. We're not going to go into on this broadcast why he's not anymore, but we've got definite ideas of what Lasan is like, what it was like, why he left. All that stuff is all part of the show. Like I said, I feel I sound a little like a broken record, but again, that's stuff that we're going to dole out in measured doses. He is, he's big, he's strong, he's agile. He's adept at using not just his hands, but his feet. He's got a unique weapon, a bow rifle, which is the traditional weapon of the honor guard. I think, and Steve Bloom, who plays Zeb, is just amazing in the role. I mean, just totally brings the guy to life. It's really true about all our cast, including our guest cast, but our regulars are stunning, and Steve is just great as Zeb.
Well, and everything we've heard online so far has been fantastic. And Greg, you are definitely in the right place having a cup of coffee with us, because we are one of the Star Wars podcasts that avoids spoilers. We don't even report on speculation, so you are certainly in the right place.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, Greg, you talked a little bit about kind of having that interview process with Dave Filoni and his crew. Now that you're kind of come on board, what's the collaborative process like with Dave?
Well, Dave is fantastic. I mean, Dave really, carries the torch for the whole production. Sort of takes it from Clone Wars and walks us forward with it. He's got terrific ideas, as does Simon, as does our great writing staff. We interact on every aspect of it, really. I mean, for starters, we all broke, Simon and Dave and the whole Lucasfilm team really all broke the premises together, constructed the season on a big bulletin board with a lot of multicolored index cards, which is my traditional way of working. Then, outlines get written. Dave gives notes on those, and scripts get written, and we get notes on those. And Dave is, suggesting dialogue and really has a clear sense of how the Force works and what it means to be a Jedi in this era specifically, as opposed to either the Clone Wars era or the post Luke Skywalker era. This is sort of this strange middle time for the Jedi, what few Jedi still live, frankly. And so Dave's got a real key sense of what that means at this point for a character like Kanan or a character like Ezra. And then, we go forward. Dave's the voice director of the show. He's very generous and lets me open my big mouth at the recording session. I will reveal a little bit of casting Dave and I both played stormtroopers in the first episode.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Breaking news here on Coffee with Kenobi.
There's a spoiler for you. First spoiler, they're stormtroopers. So that was a blast. I mean, that was just a lot of fun. But again, the show is just sort of one dream come true moment after another. And so that was one of them. And then, the Dave's crew gets to work, and I see the animatics when they come in, and I kibitz a little on that, and and everything's just looking so gorgeous. Just stunning stuff. It's just been terrific working with Dave, and Simon as well, who's written some terrific stuff for the show, and again was part of the whole process of putting the whole season together. And it's just been a terrific experience.
It sounds like an amazing dream come true. I'm sure the fans would love to just be a fly on the wall to see that amazing collaborative process with all of you.
I'm sure they would. But,
We're so thrilled to have you on. It's a real honor for us because you're doing some great work already. So tell us about your background in writing and how that led to animation and comics. You're living the dream.
I started writing my first novel in second grade. I won't put you through everything I wrote between second grade and now. But the point is I pretty much always wanted to be a writer. In any event, I've always wanted to be a storyteller. And by the time I was in second grade, I knew that meant being a writer. And I have I, by the way, never finished that second grade novel. It was a very dramatic story about the faculty sixth grade softball game.
Well, sure.
But I never quite got around to finishing that one. In fact, I have many unfinished novels and two finished ones, thankfully, finally. I just always wanted to be a storyteller. If I lived during the Middle Ages, I'd be wearing tights and walking from town to town with a lute or something like that. So we're kind of lucky that, everyone's kind of lucky that don't live in the Middle Ages. No one wants to see me in tights and no one wants to hear me sing. But that's just what I've always wanted to do. And I started working in comics when I was in college, a sophomore in college. I started at DC Comics. When I graduated, I moved to New York and got a job as a editorial assistant at DC, which is a fancy title for Xerox boy, basically. Associate editor, and I was freelance writing for them, and I moved back to LA, which is where I'm from, went to USC and got my master's there, got a job at Disney, working at Disney Television Animation as a junior executive, developed a bunch of shows, tried to learn the whole business of animation. I hadn't set out to be in animation per se, but I loved it when I got there. Worked my way up to being director of series development there, but wasn't doing a lot of writing on my own. I was sort of writing as I developed these new series, but then, I'd always hand the series off to somebody else on Gargoyles. That I finally sort of said to my bosses, hey, I don't want to leave this one. I want to keep working on it. And I moved over and became a producer on the show.
Wow, and it's probably safe to say that's where you left your mark and your big impact, and there are so many fans, and I love what you do online where you interact with people about this show. How did that come about? I
actually think my sister introduced me. She found this website, and this is back in the day. I mean, this is so long ago that I wasn't really that familiar with the internet.
Right.
He said, hey, there's this website that's completely dedicated to Gargoyles, and so I went on it once, and just sort of went to a chat room or went to a comment room and interacted with the fans a little bit. And that evolved into a couple of scheduled chats with Eric Trabou, who runs this website, worked out with me. And then we sort of evolved that into this Ask Greg, which you can find at www.askgregweisman.com. And I've been answering questions at Ask Greg for, 17 years or something like that.
That's fantastic.
Gargoyles is celebrating this year its 20th anniversary of its premiere. It premiered in October. Well, the world premiere was September 28th or 29th. I'm blanking out. 1994 down in Florida. But the show started airing in October of that year. So we're celebrating the 20th anniversary, and so a few conventions I'll be attending this year, like Denver Comic-Con, and especially Convergence in Minneapolis. We're doing sort of 20th anniversary celebrations of Gargoyles at these conventions because there's still a ton of fans who really love that show, and I've never stopped loving that show.
Well, it is so great, and you're a fan yourself of these sort of things. So the fact that you are so heavily involved with an amazing show, and you still interact with the fans, you don't seem to tire of that, and people appreciate that. So thanks on behalf of the fan community, if I can speak for them, which they didn't ask me to. But thanks a lot for doing that. That means a lot to people.
Well, everyone's always thanking me for that as if I'm not being 100% selfish by doing it, which of course I am.
Nothing wrong with that.
The fact of the matter is that it's very gratifying. Mm-hmm. 95% of my interaction with fans is just tremendously gratifying and feeds my ego, which is probably not a good thing, but there you go. And positive stuff comes out. I've made really good friends out of most of these fandoms, in particular the Gargoyles fandom, because we did have for years and years a Gargoyle convention, an annual convention dedicated specifically to the Gargoyles television show. And I've got a bunch of friends that I made going to those conventions, people who started out as fans, and I just became close friends with them. And that's been terrific. And, I'm not exactly shy about self-promotion. So, for better or for worse, that's, another aspect that really all this interaction with the fans is selfish, completely easy and fun for me because it's selfish. Every once in a while, you run into a fan who's less pleasant, and every once in a while you get a little tired of people asking for spoilers when you've told them over and over again that you're just not going to give them. But for the most part, like I said, about 95% of my interaction with fans is incredibly positive, and I just really do enjoy it.
For a limited time at Sprint, get $50 for each new phone you lease when you switch. That's right. You'll get $50 for each new phone on a prepaid MasterCard issued by MetaBank member FDIC. Just register for the card online and you're good to go. Get a network built for unlimited and a great price at Sprint. It's the best of both worlds. And get $50 on a prepaid MasterCard for each phone you lease. Visit a Sprint store this weekend only for sizzling Sprint Saturday deals.
Card terms, conditions, and expiration apply.
So real quick, I want to ask, and I was doing some research, of course, as any good literature and writing teacher would, and I saw that you used to teach writing as well?
Yeah, I've taught, I taught at USC. I guess if you went back far enough, I taught a literature course at Stanford.
Wow.
As undergraduate. I taught a course called The Mythic Hero in Modern Literature. It was a seminar with about, I'm going to say like 10, 12 students in it tops, probably more like 8. It's so long ago. I'm so old. It was so long ago. I literally don't remember how many students I had. And I also was a TA for the big Shakespeare course. I was one of the TAs, and I was the first undergraduate TA that the English department had ever used. And after I had done it, others undergraduates started doing it in the English department at Stanford, but I was something of a trailblazer thanks to a great professor I had there, Ron Rebholz, who just passed away recently. But, I love Shakespeare, and obviously I'm goofy for heroic literature, so those were both very interesting classes. And then when I was at graduate school at USC, I taught just the regular freshman English composition course for a couple semesters, but tried to make it fun. We did assignments on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
That's cool.
And stuff like that. And then later, Kevin Hops and I taught through UCLA Extension. We taught courses specifically in writing for television animation. And we did that for a while, and we sort of created this mega course that went over 2 semesters and taught all about the writing process, but also taught all about the production process of animation as well, since I feel strongly that if you're going to write for a medium, you need to know how the product is made from top to bottom, not simply script writing processes.
Absolutely.
We taught that course for a while, but I have taught on and off over the years. I enjoy teaching.
I hear you. Well, this is I'll do a little plug for myself. If you go on to StarWars.com right now, I'm on the front page. I'm the teacher that did the article about how I incorporate Hamlet and Shakespeare and Star Wars together.
Well, that's great. I mean, that book that came out recently,
Ian's book. Yeah, Ian Desher.
That was terrific. The Star Wars done as a Shakespeare play, I thought was great, and had some talk about, just for fun, at some convention or other, putting on that show like a radio play kind of thing. I just think that'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be great. In fact, he at the end of the month, he's coming to my classroom through the internet, and he's going to help me teach the kids about iambic pentameter.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
So, Greg, you're also a writer, a novel writer, and I myself am a writer. I've published a couple books myself. But tell us a little bit more about your writing as a novelist and your new book, Reign of Ghosts.
Reign of the Ghosts is a novel that came out this past December and is available at bookstores. If they don't have it on the shelves, just go to the desk and you can order it. Or obviously you can go to Amazon or websites like that and get it there, either as an ebook or as a hard copy. And it is the story of a 13-year-old girl named Rain Kasik, who lives on a tropical island with her parents. Her mom runs a bed and breakfast. Her dad runs a charter boat service. And even at age 13, Rain spends a lot of her time, sort of working for tourists. And she feels a little bit, as 8th grade is about to start, it's the summer before 8th grade, that her life is set. That she'll go through junior high and she'll go through high school and she'll graduate, and then she will continue to work on this chain of 8 islands, the Ghost Keys, otherwise known as the Ghosts. And she will continue to work for tourists, and that's going to be her whole life, and she feels very trapped. And the one person who sort of makes her feel like there's something else out there besides that is her maternal grandfather, who gives her this family heirloom. It's an armband. Actually, he wore it on his wrist. The grandfather did, but since she's considerably slimmer as a 13-year-old girl, she wears it around her biceps as a armband, and it's these 2 intertwined snakes. And from the moment she puts it on, she feels different. She feels special. She feels part of this generational line. And in fact, that armband sort of grants her special abilities, and the main one being that she can communicate with the dead, with ghosts.
Wow.
And so she finds out over the course of the first book that she has a destiny, that she has a mission. And it's a 9-book series. The first book is Reign of the Ghosts. That's out now. The second book is called Spirits of Ash and Foam, and that comes out July 8th. It takes everything deeper. There's a lot of adventure. Rain has a best friend, Charlie, who is part of her adventures. There are ghosts. The second book has a lot of mythology from the area, which is the Taino mythology, which is a rich tradition with a lot of great stories that hasn't really been touched on by pop culture. So for me, at least, it felt like, I love mythology. I put mythology in Gargoyles. Star Wars has a great mythology of its own. So I love that stuff. But here was a mythology that was new to me, at least, and felt fresh and new from a pop culture standpoint because I hadn't seen it exploited much by other writers. And so Rain and her stories are rich in all this Taino myth. I think it's I'm having a great time writing it. I'd finished the first two books and crossing my fingers, hoping that they do well enough that St. Martin's Press will order the 7 that follow. But I've just gotten so into it that I've already sort of come up with a second series of 9 books set in this universe. So I'm raring to go to get to the third book, but just waiting for that go-ahead from St. Martin's.
Well, I'm just impressed you were able to find the time to do all this amazing stuff.
Well, the first book I actually wrote over a decade ago, and sent it out to a bunch of different publishing houses and got rejected at every single one. Started on a rewrite that I think made it better, but I got very intimidated by the rewrite, and I sort of put it aside for literally 10 years or more. And then when Young Justice ended, before I got the Star Wars job, quite a bit before I got the Star Wars job, a year before, when Young Justice ended, I said, I've got to finish this. I said, and I didn't actually think it would sell because, I tried to sell it, and I thought the rewrite made it better, but it didn't change the book significantly. So I'd been so intimidated by this rewrite. When I finally sat down to do it, it only took me 3 weeks. Which is embarrassing because I'd waited for so long because I was so afraid of it. And it's not that it was simple, but it just wasn't nearly as horrible a task as I thought it, as I built it up in my head. And so I did that rewrite in 3 weeks, and I sent it out to my agent, but also to this buddy of mine at St. Martin's Press. And I sent him that, and I sent him just a one-sheet outlining where the next 8 books went, literally half a paragraph on each of the other 8 books. And 3 weeks later, he wrote back and saying they're going to buy the first 2 books and see how it goes for the ones that follow, which was terrific. Meant I had to write the second book. And, when I had written the first book so long ago, I literally had no memory of how long it took me to write the first book. I still have no idea. I cannot remember. So, I sat down to write the second book, October and November of 2012, doing research. Then December and January, outlining the book. Again, my method is a lot of index cards on bulletin boards, and this second book was 693 index cards by the time I was done.
Wow.
And then started writing in February, and then got the Star Wars job in May. So I realized suddenly I went from having, no other work, so all I was doing was the book, to having a full-time job on Star Wars and yet still having a deadline on the book. So I had some summer months in there that were kind of hairy, but I finished the book in October. So it took me exactly pretty much a year to do the book from start to finish. Again, it would have been faster without Star Wars, but I'm not complaining about the Star Wars thing. And in fact, what I'm doing tonight is I got the copy edits back from the publisher. And over the last couple of days, I've been going through those, making sure there are no typos, that kind of thing. And so tonight I have to finish that and send it out first thing tomorrow morning so that, it's all on time to be published on July 8th.
Well, that's great. And I love hearing about how things come about and how the writing process is different for everybody. Could you talk a little bit about how from writing a novel and writing a screenplay, what's the different process for you about going about that?
Well, I'm not an expert in screenplays. Teleplays, I think, for me, the process isn't too different. It's still about, I like to get all my ducks in a row on that kind of thinkers. So, I like to, when doing a teleplay, we do outlines, we do premises first, make sure everyone's on board with the basic story we want to tell. Then we do the outlines where we get all the structure set up. We break it all down scene by scene so that we know when we go into the teleplay process, we know exactly how the story is going and supposed to go. And it makes things pretty smooth so that the teleplay can focus more on the art of it and not the structure of it. And when I wrote the novel, it was very much the same way. I did all my research first, and I outlined it in tremendous detail. And it doesn't mean that I don't make changes as I go. Serendipity comes up, an idea comes up, you go with whatever works best in any given moment. But I still like to have that framework all set up in advance. I need that. There have been times, more often on comic books that I've written, where I just said, I'm going to wing this one. I'm not going to outline it in advance. I'm just going to write as I go and see what happens. And I've tried that a couple times in comics and regretted it pretty much every single time. I'm sure it works great for certain people, and everyone's different. And I don't claim to have, the final word on how other people should write. But for me, I need to have that structure figured out in advance.
That makes sense. That's kind of one of the things that I tell my students when I'm teaching them creative writing and different things about how you get there. Everybody has their own unique process, but it's the end result that, of course, you're shooting for. Well, I can't have Greg Weisman on Coffee with Kenobi and not ask you about Young Justice. It truly is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and I'm not just saying that because you're on. And me and the boys were probably as disappointed with the cancellation of that as we were the Clone Wars. So I would love if you could maybe spend a few minutes and tell us about your time on Young Justice.
Well, Young Justice was a great experience. Brandon Vietti and I developed the show with Kevin Hops and the folks at Warner Brothers and DC and Cartoon Network. And we just had a blast on it. We had a phenomenal cast. We had great writers. We got some really great stories told. And we had a lot of really great stories left to tell. And so we were easily as bummed as you guys were that it didn't go forward beyond the second season. But, I'm a big-time comic book geek. And I love those characters. And I've always been sort of fascinated with the younger characters and where they go. And Young Justice provided us with the opportunity to sort of show those characters in various stages of growing up. And it also allowed us to create sort of our own version of the DC universe. And that was a huge kick also. So, it was a truly great experience, and we were sorry that it ended.
Oh, and realistically, and this is just me talking, not you, but I think what you did on Young Justice, and I think you and I are actually pretty close to each other in age, and to me, the Young Justice canon was as good or better, honestly, than what they're doing with the new 52 now.
Well, I don't have any opinion on that.
I know you don't. I know you don't, but I sure do.
And that's not me being diplomatic. I haven't read the new 52.
No.
When it first came out, I was in the middle of things and was just too busy to get to it. And I'm sure they're doing a lot of great stuff there. And it's a lot harder. You're talking about, 52 books just to start with. By now, it's probably twice that many. and all these editors, all these writers. It's a much more challenging task than what we were set out to do, which was to create one cohesive TV series, which then later included comics based directly off the TV series and a video game based directly off the TV series. And even that was challenging, but it's a much smaller scale operation than, you know, an entire line of comic books. And like I said, we had a great time on it, but I don't feel like we're in competition with New 52. I'm sure they're doing great stuff on that as well.
Oh, no. Just my own.
To look at it.
Sure, just my own personal bias there. I do want to ask, are you allowed to say what kind of storylines will we have seen if Young Justice had continued, and if that will ever happen as far as in any medium, will we see anything?
Well, I hope so. I mean, we think that was Earth 16 was a pretty interesting universe, and we'd like to get back to it at some point if and when DC, WB, and or CN would like to. So for that reason, I'm not giving away spoilers for what we had planned for season 3,
cool.
Because someday we'd still like to do it.
Oh, good. That is probably the best. That might be my favorite thing I've heard so far today, because that's a great show. And your take on Superboy is my favorite one that's ever been done.
Well, thanks. I mean, and I really should give a lot of credit on that to Brandon Vietti as well, who's so smart. I mean, literally smartest guy along these lines I've ever met, and we really did it together. I get a lot of credit for that because I've got a track record, and that was the first show Brandon ever produced. But the fact is, so much of that was Brandon, and so I really need to share credit with him.
Definitely, well, definitely props to Brandon, absolutely, because it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So, Greg, as always, as our guests with Coffee with Kenobi are with us, we ask 5 questions that we like to ask all of our guests, and we see you're getting close to the end of your coffee, so we're just going to get right to it right now.
Sounds good.
What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire.
Okay, your favorite Star Wars character?
Chewbacca.
You know, I just watched the video again of you talking about it, and I loved how you talked about the partnership between he and Han, and how you described that. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm attracted to the Little John Robin Hood relationship. I see it, or I used to see it anyway, every time Bruce Springsteen gave a concert.
Oh, nice.
Bruce was always Robin Hood to me, and Clarence Clemens was always Little John. And so I'm a big Robin Hood fan, and I love that relationship. And to me, that's always been what Han and Chewie were.
That's great. I never thought about it that way until you put it. That's great.
Your favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
Well, I think one of the all-time greatest film moments ever is Luke, I'm your father. It's one of those moments where, on the one hand, it's shocking, and on the other hand, it's so right. You know, it's such an of course moment that you nevertheless didn't see coming. You know, one of the truly great cinematic moments of all time.
Absolutely. And then, so if you collect, what is your favorite collectible that you own?
Well, I'm not actually much of a collector, to be honest. I wind up acquiring a lot of stuff, and I don't give it away. But I did get, as a gift, when I started on the show, the folks at Lucasfilm were very, very nice, and they gave me 2 lightsabers, one each for my 2 kids. And I think probably my favorite collectible is I've got a photograph of the 2 of them having a lightsaber battle, my 2 kids with their new lightsabers. Keeping in mind that my kids are 19 and 16. It's not like they're 9 and 6, but still, it's incredibly cool. And that photo is on my desk.
That's fantastic. We're both dads too, so that's great. I love that.
So what particular message or theme about Star Wars resonates with you or speaks to you?
Well, there are a lot. I don't know if there's just one, but I think that probably it's that sense of discovery. You know, it's Luke who's living the life of a farm boy out in the sticks, so to speak, and finding out that there's this whole larger world out there that he has a role to play in. And I find that very appealing.
It's beautiful. It's the great mythology that everyone loves about Star Wars and storytelling.
I agree.
Well, Greg Weisman, it has been an absolute privilege and an honor to share a cup of coffee with you. Thank you so much for coming on Coffee with Kenobi and Rebels Reactions. We had a great time and hope to chat with you again in the future.
I'd love that.
Greg, also, just real quick, just so folks and fans can connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you online?
You can go to www.askgregweisman, all one word, AskGregweisman.com. That's my Ask Greg website, and you can ask me questions there. I'm about a couple months behind. I think I'm answering December questions now, so I'm getting on to 3 months behind, but I'm getting through them. Or you can reach me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. It's, at Greg_Weisman. I love to get new Twitter followers, and that's a way to communicate with me too. And again, I just want to shamelessly ask your listeners to buy my book, Rain of the Ghost, available on Amazon or at bookstores. And again, the second book in the series, Spirits of Ash and Foam, you can pre-order it now on Amazon, but it comes out July 8th.
Well, I can assure you that we are going to plug your book like crazy. We're going to have links to it on our website. We'll be sending people towards it, and I'm sure Corey and I will pick it up too, because the mythology of it sounds great, which makes perfect sense to a guy who's came from Gargoyles and Young Justice and now Star Wars Rebels. So, Greg Weisman, thanks again so much for being on Coffee with Kenobi.
Well, thanks. I had a great time. Love to do it again.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coreys@coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/coffeewithkenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, download the album Eye to Eye by Steve Torok on iTunes.
Yes, this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Ltd. and is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.
The big wireless companies sold you an outdated plan tied to long-term contracts and mystery fees. Simple Mobile's different. You get a lightning-fast 4G LTE nationwide network with no contract, ever. And keep the phone and number you love. Just text the word BYOP to 611-611 to see if your phone is compatible. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple.
Standard text message and data rates may apply based on your mobile phone service. Please refer always to the privacy policy at simplemobile.com/privacy policy and the terms and conditions at simplemobile.com/terms and conditions.